Dorothy Dent, and today we're going to paint sunflowers. I love sunflowers because they're just so beautiful and so bright, and the sunflowers were really popular, and I think they still are yet today. And so I've put this one together and put some sunflowers in a pot, and I think they look real pretty, and I hope you have a good time painting them. Look on my website. You'll find a lot of other florals there and some still lifes and just a lot of things. Landscape, I do a lot of that. It's dorothydent.com, and so you'll want to check that out and see all things that we have. There's also classes listed and just a number of things. I think you'll enjoy looking at our website, so don't forget to do that. We're going to get started today, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we're going to use as far as brushes. Okay, we're ready to get started, so let's talk about the brushes that you're going to be using today. So I think these are the ones I have listed. I've listed my small background brush. This is a long-haired flat bristle brush. It's about a size 6 in my series. Also, we're going to use a couple of flat sables. This is my detail flat, and it's about a size 8. And then I have a smaller flat sable that I use in some smaller areas, and this one is a 4. It's the same type brush. And you'll also need a liner. So I've just got a number 1 little liner that's pretty good for all things that's small. And then I have a little filbert brush that might come in handy for some of the smaller areas too. Very sharp point. This is a little pure red sable brush, and it's about a size 4 pure red sable, like I said. So that's a good one. And I think that's all the brushes that we'll use today. Let's talk about our paint. I've got our paint palette here, and run through these colors. This, of course, is white, and this bright yellow is cad yellow light, and here you have cad yellow medium. The orange is crying there. And we have some yellow ochre. This is cadmium orange, cadmium red light, and alizarin crimson, very dark red. And this one is burnt sienna. And we have cobalt turquoise, real beautiful turquoise blue. And the last one is a very dark blue. It's indothrone blue. So those are our colors for today. And we're just going to brush mix our colors. I don't normally use a palette knife and do a lot of mixing with a palette knife. We just brush mix, so that's what we're going to be doing. Also, you need some painting medium. This is liquid glaze in this little cup. You can use that, or liquid is good as well. Liquid glaze is a Martin Weber product, and liquid is Winsor Newton. But they're essentially the same thing. It thins the paint down, and it also makes it dry a little faster. So that's the purpose of that. And then you need a container that will hold your brush cleaner. This is just odorless brush cleaner, like Turpenoid or anything else that's that similar type product. Okay, where we're going to start on this one is going to be the dark side of the canvas over here, and this is really quite dark. You'll use your big brush when you get in around some of these little petals and so forth. You'll probably want to go to your flat sable, like your detail flat, the number 8, so you can be more careful around these little petals that are sticking out there. But we'll start with the larger brush and just using the flat of the brush, and I'm going to mix the blue, so you'll pick up a little bit of your blue. I've got just a tiny touch of the yellow medium, just a little tiny bit, and I've added just a little touch of cad red light occasionally. I want this to look very dark, and these colors can have variation to them, you know, just want a dark color, but a lot of blue. If it looks too yellow, put some more blue in it. If it doesn't look dark enough, that you could add that little touch of red, and that makes it darker. So you can vary the colors a little bit. It looks better than just all one flat color anyway. So mix your color, and then just come up here and make sure it's a nice dark value that looks more probably a little more to the blue than the red, but it's just very, very dark. So that's what we're going to do first. You might want to dip in your medium and thin the paint down just a little bit. If it thins down to the point that it's real transparent looking, that is just too much moisture. So you want it to look dark. You just don't want it to look, you don't want it to be real thick. You don't want your paint on there real thick and heavy. So as I remix, I just sometimes get a little touch more red or a little touch more of the blue, or maybe sometimes a speck of green, yellow in it to make it look a little bit greenish. So we're just going to work in all of this area here. When you come over here toward these little flowers, as I'm working up here in this top corner of the canvas, I'm just going to paint those little lines out. We put them in there just because you know that they're there, but we'll lose them. And then we'll paint over the background. So something that's that small, where you've just got little lines, that would be done probably with a liner or something very small like that. It's too small to try to go around, and so I just paint them out. And we can see where they are by looking at the colored picture, and we'll put them back in later. I'll probably come about halfway across with the dark, halfway across the top of the canvas. If your paint, as your brush mixing, looks a little bit too brownish, it's probably because you have too much red in it. You can add a little bit more of your blue. And just occasionally I have just a little touch of yellow in it, not very much, because I wanted to keep it fairly dark. And not too green, but a little bit could be added. I'm almost to the point now, as I'm coming around these flowers, that I'm going to switch to a smaller brush. So when you get about to that stage, go to your detail flat, and then we get a little bit more careful here as we come in around all these little petals, and we'll work carefully around those. And that way we won't lose them, and we'll be able to make them look like we want them to look, hopefully. And this gets a little tedious as you work around these, so just do the best you can. Some of these also have a little bit of that dark value way back here. You can look at your picture where the petals connect. Back here there's a little bit of dark in there where they connect to the center. Remember to pick up that little touch of medium occasionally. That makes a lot of difference. When the paint gets kind of dry, it wants to just not really look dark. It just kind of leaves some of the texture of the canvas showing. Always keep your color picture right there where you can see it, because in small areas like these, it's often hard to see where you're supposed to be. So you can refer to your picture and see what is dark and what's not. Keeps you from making mistakes. I used to live where we had some acreage, and I had a great big garden. And we planted sunflowers one time, and they were so beautiful. Big, tall, their heads were just hanging over full of seeds, and the birds loved them too. They'd come and sit on them and pick out the seeds. And I took a picture of them with my camera. I took a photograph, and they were just so beautiful that day. And later in the day, a big storm came up, and the wind blew really hard, and it blew every one of them down. So I was so sad, but I was glad I had the picture of them before they blew over. But they're good for the birds. They love to have those sunflower seeds, and of course they're good for us to eat too. And down here at the bottom, and this is a leaf. I'm going around right here, and we'll get around that one. And down toward the bottom, when you get down this far, I've added just a little bit of white down there, and I can see there's a touch of alizarin crimson down there too. So when you're doing these backgrounds and you get them all done, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're completely done with them, because after you paint the flowers and you paint everything else, sometimes you want to come back and put little bits of color in the background, like you could put a little touches of more yellow or the alizarin and white or something in the background, just to pick up some of the colors that's in the painting and move them around to the background. So they can always still be changed. Nothing's forever unless you want it to be. So now I'm back to the bigger brush after I got around those little leaves. And we're going to come down about to this line somewhere along in there. And that'll be the stopping place. So right in there is kind of where I'm going to pick up just a little touch of white, maybe a little touch of alizarin crimson, makes kind of a pink. I'll work just a little bit of that in. And right up against our pot. This doesn't have to look real smooth. I mean, a little bit of variation in these colors is really nice. That's kind of what we're after. So if you're not looking real smooth and can see some of your brush strokes, sometimes that's to be desired. So whatever you think it should look like. If you like it smoother, make it smoother. If you like to see more brush strokes, then that's fine too. Okay, so I'm going to work now just on around these little flowers on up here, so you can work in there along till you get somewhere up here about in the center part of this top portion. As we're working this in here, and you can work with different strokes, go in different directions, but what I've done with my finished one, I took my brush and went with vertical strokes to kind of clean it up at the edges, and I just like that vertical look, so that smooths it out as well, and just doing this kind of a up and down stroke makes it look finished once you get it all in there. This could be done on a black background if you don't like to go around everything like we're doing. It would look a little different, but it would still be pretty because I've painted on like a black background and other things, and it gives it a nice look. Just a little different from this, but if you're not liking to go around all this stuff, just paint your canvas with 2 coats of black acrylic, or you could use a real dark green. That would be pretty too, something like a black green acrylic. And then put your pattern on with white transfer paper, and then just paint like that. So that way it would avoid all of this going around stuff. It, of course, will make your background different, and the flowers would look a little bit darker. The petals would not be quite as bright as they are over the white canvas, but it would still be very, very attractive. So you might try that sometime when you think about that. I'm just kind of switching back and forth between small brushes and the bigger brush as we come up here to the top. When the time comes that we start painting the flowers, we may find little bits of the background that we've missed painting. I have to do a little fill in, but that's all right. We can fill in. I see a couple of little spots right here. There's a little area right there that's part of the background. And we've got this area pretty good in there. These little dark areas that's kind of between some of these petals, we may miss a few of those and have to come back to them, but I know there's a few right there. I think we'll probably paint the petals first and then find those little spots there as we need to. And coming around on this other side of the stem right here is a dark area. Yeah, I think I've probably got most of the really dark areas here, and I'm going to start picking up just a little bit more of a greenish look as we move on to the other side. I'm going to pick up a little bit of the cad yellow medium. Coming on over here, a little cad yellow medium with the blue, and I'm going to add just a little touch of white, not too white to begin with here, but just a little bit. So it starts looking a little bit greener. I'm going to thin the paint down a bit as well. Switch back to the smaller brush for these little areas. Sometimes on these little areas it's hard to tell what's background and what's flowers. Okay, as I'm working up around all of these little petals on these flowers here and all of this side here, you're just working with a little bit of yellow with your blue and a bit of white. And so that gives you the lighter values that we're needing for this side. And we're going to bring our background down to this sloped line right in through there. That's where your shadows are going to come in. And the lighter you want it, the more white you want to put in your mixture. And of course some medium, keep some medium in there so that it's going to spread nicely. And we'll just keep working down toward that line, and then anytime you have small areas, go to your small brush, just like we've been doing. Put a little bit of this light up in here in the areas around your leaves. And everybody's always looks a bit different, you know. You can't paint something exactly the same. I can't make mine look exactly the same twice. I always get a little variation to the colors, and that's fun anyway. We don't need it to be exactly. That makes too much work out of it. It wouldn't probably happen anyway. Even though you work at it, it's hard to get anything exactly the same. But as long as you have some lighter greens over here and blue greens, kind of leave it a little bit more to the blue green. So that means a little more of your in the throne blue, touches of yellow, and then white to lighten it up. And looks like we've got just about everything done. And by the way, I think it's listed on your sheets of paper that came with this, but it's Martin Weber paints. These are Permalba. They're professional grade Permalba Weber paints. I like them because they're creamy. And they're nice strong colors and nice professional quality of oils. And they're kind of a mid-tone, I guess, or mid, not tone, but a mid-value price range. They're a little more expensive than your cheaper grade of student grade paint, but those sometimes are not near the quality of paint that you need. And they're not quite as expensive as some brands, so they fall somewhere in the middle for price ranges and control of color. I think they're very good paints. All right, when you get to that point, I think we'll be through with our background for now. Okay, let's go ahead now and paint our pot. I'm going to skip the table for a bit and go ahead and paint our pot, then we'll move on to other things. Same general colors that we used in the background we're going to use in the pot. The dark side is going to be here on the left, and then as we come on across, we're going to have a little bit more light over there. So our light's kind of coming in from the right. So get a color that's similar to the background color. That was your dark blue, Indothrone blue. And I'm going to pick up just a little touch of Cad Red Light with it. And maybe just a speck of yellow to keep it a dark value here. Lots more blue probably than anything else. Blue and red, just a little touch of yellow. I'm using my small background brush. Come right along the edge, up here at the top. There's a little purple flower up here, but I'm just going to pretty much paint it out. If you want to go around and leave just a little bit in the center there, we know it's in that vicinity right in there, but if you lose it entirely, it's okay. We'll find it again. Going right in underneath the leaves. Real dark area right in there. Come on around underneath this big leaf that comes down. Use some medium. Don't forget your medium so your paint gets a little thinner. I'm putting just a little bit more red in this area here with my blue. Even a little touch of alizarin crimson looks good in the pot colors. It gives it just a little bit of a reddish color, a little bit in there. I'm going to put some dark right underneath these leaves over here on the right side also. Well, that's the general areas where you've got your darkest dark right there. And then over in here, we're going to have a little bit of dark, but we're going to also have a lot of light. So I'm going to put just a little hint of some dark colors. And then at that point in time, I'm going to go ahead and clean the brush. So I'm going to turp the brush out and dry it off. You can pick up some of these light greens like we had on the other side. There's just a little bit of that. And you'll catch into whatever dark that you laid up there. Just kind of work this together. We're going to get a light green over here and the dark over here, and then we'll just kind of put in some little suggestions of stems and things. Block in first. When you hit the dark area here, just brush it together. Don't just stop. When you get into the dark, blend into it. I'm going to come in with a little smaller brush here so I can get the bottom of the vase in there where it needs to be, and a little darker right across that bottom there. Catching and blending into the light areas and into the dark areas, so you don't want it to be blended smoothly. We're going to suggest a few little stems down in here in a minute. Okay, once you get these colors blended together, and blend by going across and then some down, and we want to just make it look like you've got some stems down inside the vase. If you can just put a few little abstract looking lines in there so it looks like stems, hopefully it does, and a little bit of highlight on some of them with just a little extra white in that light green, and then maybe just even a few little stems on the other side here that's kind of barely showing through. Across and then down, just kind of looks like there's something back inside it. Somewhere about in this general area right in through here, there's a little extra bit of light in there, just like a little shine on the vase, maybe just a little extra white. And that's about all we really need for the vase right now, I think, is that. Some of your darker value and then a little bit of the extra white with the light green, and kind of looks like you've got something inside the vase. Somewhere along off center here you could put a little extra white shine, little shine lines with just some pure white. And whether your vase looks see-through or whether it looks more solid doesn't really make a lot of difference. It'll be a pretty vase either way. So if you can't seem to get the stems in there to look like there's something inside, you can just leave it as a more solid type glass vase. Okay, when we're through with our vase and it looks satisfactory, let's go ahead and paint some of our leaves. The top, we're going to work from dark to light on the leaves as much as we can, and the top portion of the leaves is going to be darker, and then as it comes down you're going to catch your light more toward the bottom. Always work for contrast between light and darks as far as your leaves are laying against the vase. You want to, if the vase is dark, the leaves have to be lighter, you know, so we can get things to show up. I'm going to start, and I'm using my small background brush, by the way, and we're starting with our dark blue. I'm going to add just a little touch of yellow to it, and then a little bit of red, maybe a touch of alizarin crimson, so you get a dark value. So quite a bit of blue. Kind of the same general dark we've been using in some of these other dark areas. So you could use alizarin or cad red light, either one, for just a little red. That grays your color down. There's the vein line coming down from that leaf. And again, we want a little bit of medium in here so your paint will move. You can take the flat of your brush and pull your strokes following what would be the growth direction or the vein lines on the leaf. See, you're just kind of pulling out, not straight out, but think how you see the veins on the leaf go. They kind of point down toward the tip of the leaf. So you've got the dark value worked in, and then I kind of wiped the brush and I picked up just a little bit of turquoise blue. Some of these leaves have a little turquoise on them, especially on the shadowed side. And then blend it back into your darker green in the middle. Again, try to follow the general direction of the growth of the leaf. So that, I like that blue in there. And this side's going to have just a little bit of lighter green. I've got some white and a little bit more yellow. Blue and yellow make green. And then if you want to darken it, you can add that touch of red. If you want to lighten it, add some white. So this side may be going to be a little lighter. So I'll have a little bit more yellow and some white. Kind of pulling back toward the center of the leaf. If you lose too much of the dark, pick up some more blue and put it back in. Okay, there's one leaf. If need be, you can come in under the leaf with a little bit more of your blue on the base just for separation. Light against dark, you cut a little notch in your leaf or whatever if you want to, just so you got a dark area around it so it lays against the base nicely. And there it is. Okay, when you get this leaf finished, let's move on up to this one right above it. And again, I can just kind of draw a vein line in, and I'm coming in underneath of some of those petals that are kind of hanging down over the edge of the leaf. Get your darker areas through the center. You can just throw the paint on there. This one's going to be kind of a blue edge, kind of hanging over there. It's a little bit in the shadows, I suppose. But I love that turquoise blue. Just wipe your brush and pick up a little turquoise when you get to the turquoise part. Lay it in and just blend it back into the darker part of Just block them in, and then you can come back and show a little stroke direction with your lights and darks just blocked in. Stroke direction can go different ways for that. This leaf is back in the shadows back here, so it doesn't need to be very light. You can have a lot of darker value back here. Kind of a gray because it's back in the shadows. Clean it up around the edges and underneath some of the petals that are hanging down over the edge of the leaf. I'm going to put a little shadow there of anything that looks dark. This leaf does have a little bit of a curve to it right there that I like. I'm going to take a little bit more of the light color and come around, just pull it around on the tip there just a little bit of a curve instead of just keeping it sharper, and make sure it looks dark underneath it. That's the way it's going to show up. And that little curved edge is just a little bit lighter, just something that's light enough to show up. After you get this leaf done, then there's this little area that's kind of right in here, and that's going to be a piece of a leaf. It's hard to tell that it's a leaf other than just the color. So we'll start with kind of a dark green, blue-green. Okay, make sure I'm getting on the leaf and not the petals. There's a little bit of it on the other side of this stem coming down. But I want to keep it pretty dark right in here, so it's going to be darker than this foreground leaf is. That's kind of a dark green, and then I'm going to put a little blue on it, the cobalt turquoise blue, with maybe just a touch of white. I'm going to pull that away from this petal up here just a little bit by putting some darker value underneath the petal and at the top of the leaf. I'm going to separate it there. I think that's going to be enough. When we see it as a whole thing, once we get our flowers in, it's just going to be a little bit of green leaf just peeking out back there. And as we paint it, it doesn't look much like a leaf, but it'll be filler back there. It'll be filler and filling in between the flowers, and we'll know it's a part of a leaf. I'm going to make a little black, dark value right in here, kind of separate those leaves right there, and that's just got a little bit of red in with the blue, so it looks very dark. And strengthen your dark areas, and then your leaves will show up as separate things. And I think that's enough leaves back in that area there. Okay, we've got these leaves pretty well finished here, so let's move to the other side of the pot over here, and let's paint this little leaf right here that's just kind of hanging over. So again, we'll get some of our darker values with a lot of the blue, a lot of the Indithron blue, just a little touch of yellow, not too much yellow. Get a dark value. It's going to be darker kind of on this dropped over side, the side over here to the left of the leaf. Just kind of block it in, and then you've got your lighter greens that'll come up kind of on this top of the hump there where it falls over. Just work your colors in there and then lighten it up a little bit by adding more yellow and a touch of white to your blue. So you get a little bit brighter green. Don't forget to put some medium in it so it brushes on smooth and easy. And just kind of brush over and catch into the blue greens, and that pretty well finishes that leaf off. It's not too difficult. If you lose some of the blue on the left side, you can add just a little bit more back, so you've got a little distinction between the light and dark there. And that leaf would be finished. And then we'll move back on to this leaf here, and again it's darker at the top underneath your little flower petals, and then it'll be lighter down here toward the bottom. A lot of blue with just a little bit of yellow is your dark green. Not too much yellow. You can also make a nice yellow green with the cobalt turquoise and white added to your blue. Down into the dark green. Makes a nice little bright yellow edge on that one. And the left side being a little darker, that we'll just put a little bit more blue in our color here. So that would finish off that leaf color-wise. And then remember the stroke direction. If you can add just a few little strokes of the suggesting the vein lines in the leaf. Finish it off. A bit of blue. Keep it dark underneath those petals of the flower. And down. Okay. And that should do it for the leaves. Okay, now we have one more leaf, and it's just this one, big long kind of curved leaf that's worked on the left side. So I'll kind of work it up around the petals of the flower with the very dark green. This again is your Indithron blue. Got a little touch of yellow in it and just a little touch of cad red light, just a tiny little bit, so it grays and darkens it. Move your brush strokes kind of with the direction of the leaf. Just stroke it in. Don't worry about it too much. Just stroke it in. Get your dark. And then just add some more yellow and a little bit of white for the light of the leaf. Just same thing like we've been doing on the others. And you can just come in and draw in, just base it in, and then just lightly just kind of blend it together. All of this growth direction of the leaf. Just block it in. And then a few little sweeping strokes and it's finished. I need to check with it against the background. I'm going to make the leaf just a little darker in a couple of places here because the background is so light. I have to pull it away from the background. Always work light against dark, so you'll have the contrast that you need. So you can adjust your colors and make it just a little bit more blue here so that it shows up against that background. A little touch of the cobalt turquoise on that. That's my favorite colors. That little blue is so pretty. Okay, that'll finish up the leaves, and now next we'll be ready to go on to the flowers. Okay, we're going to move on now to the sunflowers, and we're going to start with the centers of them. And I'm going to use my detail flat brush to begin with. And this is burnt sienna, and burnt sienna with just a little touch of orange in it. And I'm coming in underneath the petals, just kind of in this little area. If you just kind of pat the color in, that should be good, or scoot it just slightly. Coming around those little leaves or petals. Burnt sienna and a little orange. Just kind of vary the orange, sometimes a little more orange and sometimes less. And we're going to pat this in. We're going to give ourselves a base coat, and then we'll come back with some of the little suggestions of seeds, little seed pods in there. Burnt sienna where it's the darkest, and then add just a little bit of orange. And then when you get out here toward the open part, I'm going to pick up a little bit of yellow ochre in there too, so it goes into a little yellow ochre. Burnt sienna, orange, a little bit of yellow ochre at the lighter outside areas, and more burnt sienna toward the back, like where they're underneath a petal or anywhere to the back side here. There's that little circle in the middle. But right now I'm just kind of going around it. Yellow ochre out here. Burnt sienna and orange to the back, a little yellow ochre toward the front or the outside part as it faces out. Just kind of get it blocked in. If it looks a little too brown and you want to boost up some of the light on it, tap a little more orange in. There's going to be a little bit of the light in this middle area too, this little center part. I'm just going to go ahead and put some light in there. Yellow ochre maybe. But I'm going to leave that little bit of the circles showing so we know where it is. I'm going to block both these in at the same time, and then we'll put our little suggestions of our seed pods in after we get both of these blocked in. This one looks like it's about based in. Okay, let's go ahead and do both of these centers at the same time, so we'll move on over here. And it's more burnt sienna up underneath the petals that are hanging over. And again, you can have a little medium in this paint. It's going to be just a little bit of orange in there too. Burnt sienna and burnt sienna with orange, that's your dark. Now this one's going to be a little lighter because it's facing forward. So I'm going to pick up yellow ochre and base in the rest. And again, I'm going around that little circle in the center. Oh, this is yellow ochre. And you can block in inside the circle there, but just keep it kind of yellow ochre in there. And once you've got these blocked in and we've got our base coats on there, we want it to look kind of textured, like you've got the seeds in there, this little seed pods. And this is where my little filbert brush comes in handy. You can see it's small brush. It's got a nice little pointed end on it. And it's going to work well for this little seed texture type stroke. I want to start with just a little bit of lighter stroke, so I can use a little orange and yellow ochre maybe with some white in it, so you've got a lighter value. And I'm just taking the side of the brush. I don't want it to be too white either. Let's get a little bit more yellow in there. Yellow white. Let's try that. And it's very small little strokes. Some of them kind of overlap each other. It's just enough so that you look like you've got some texture there. Yellow and a little touch of white is good, or maybe just some yellow by itself might be better, because we don't want them too white. And I'm not trying to make it look too polka dotty, but I am trying to get a little bit of that texture in there, that it does look like you've got some little seed pods or seed patterns in there. I think probably just your yellow medium is working pretty well right here, and it doesn't look so white. And fade it out as it comes back into the dark area where they're going to go in under a petal or somewhere. Not going to see it so much. So this is yellow with a little maybe yellow ochre in there, and I think I'm going to forget the white. It was making it look too white. Little touch of that cad yellow light might work in this nicely too, as well as cad yellow medium. So I'm just putting enough texture in here to rough it up a little bit. It's little short strokes that pull back toward where it's connected to the stem. So you're pulling little back stroke kind of thing, just a little short stroke that creates some texture. Try to make it lighter to the outside, you know, as it's facing out into the open area. Put a little bit right there in the middle. Even just a little touch of some of your green that might be still down there on your palette right here in the center might look pretty good. A little bit of that. If it looks too polka dotty, just get more strokes and let them overlap each other a little bit more. If you space them out too much, they're going to look too dotty. Polka dotty. Even a little bit of orange would be pretty back in there toward the back, especially. A little bit of orange. That's such a rich color. Makes it look like the light's hitting it. I like the orange. Makes it almost have a little glow to it to get that orange in there. Okay, once you get your little suggestions of your seed pods there, let's come in with just burnt sienna and still the same kind of little short pulling in stroke. And we'll get that little center thing in. This is just burnt sienna. And then you can look at it again, see if it needs some more highlights or anything. I'm going to put a little bit of orange right to the inside of the burnt sienna. Just because it's pretty. I think that's enough on that one, so let's move on to the other one. And this one's going to have some yellow dabbed in down here at the bottom. Yellow, medium, or some yellow light works pretty good too. And these are just little short choppy strokes. Rather than trying to pull them in, I'm just kind of chopping them in with a little downward stroke, and it's just going to give you a nice little texture thing that's going to work for you, I think. The looser and quicker you can do this, the better it's going to look. It won't look so much like you just tried to place every little stroke, which would be really hard to do anyway. But just a little bit of yellow light with a touch of white in it right there, and that's going to give it a little shine, like the light was really hitting it right on that little edge there. Maybe a little bit of orange back here to the back. And then after you've got enough of the yellow in that, maybe touches of orange or whatever, go back into your burnt sienna and we'll do those little choppy strokes in the middle of this one and get our little circle thing in. Yellow toward the bottom of that little yellow, and that should do okay for the center of this one too. That should probably be enough. It's hard to know when to quit on something like this. I'm going to put just a little more yellow white down here at the bottom for a little area maybe where the light's really hitting it there. Okay, now we're ready to start our petals, and brush-wise, I think you should use your small detail flat and perhaps the little filbert brush as well. So these petals are not too big, so you want smaller brushes. And the main thing to watch now is that you have contrast between petals. When you've got petals that are together, like we're going to start right up here, all of these petals are touching each other. So when they touch each other, one of them has to be darker and the other one lighter, at least on the edge where they touch, or they're going to all run together. Color value is what separates everything. So you always work light against dark or dark against light, whatever, so you've got the separation needed. I'm going to start with this little petal up here at the top, and you're going to come in with orange, and some of them even have a little touch of burnt sienna with the orange for the darker areas. And then the petals themselves, as they come out into the light, are cad yellow medium or maybe a little cad yellow light. So you've got the brighter toward the edges. Okay, this one right here is coming in with a dark value. And there's a really dark value right there. There's a little hole where I'll pick up just a little burnt sienna with a touch of blue. Should have probably done that first, but right there at the little area right there, it's kind of like a little diamond shape. And there's some dark there. That'll separate things. And then when you're coming up, I use my brush and pick up a little bit of orange. And it's a little bit orangey right here next to this other petal. And then you blend down into that dark where you set that in. And then the rest of the petal, I'll just wipe the brush and pick up a little bit of cad yellow medium and fill it in all the way out to the edge. And then blend down into the orange. And that petal's probably done. Unless you feel like there's not enough contrast, I could have just a little bit more orange right there on that one. Now this one over here could go a little more orangey on its back side. And the yellow, your yellows can also sometimes have a little touch of white in there if you want it even lighter. You can come around this edge, and that's lighter, so you've got a lighter petal here against a darker petal right there. There's little green things, I don't know what they're called, but little green things here that's going to hold the petals, so you have to watch and go around those and not lose them. But once you get started with this, everybody that, you know, we're just going to keep on painting, light against dark, and just move on around. And some of your petals may be a little different than mine, which is perfectly fine, just so you get enough separation to see the different shapes. See, this one's a little more yellow up there where it's against the orange. And just kind of start moving them around. And you can go back and put more dark on some of them if you need it. It doesn't have to be perfect the first time. You can go back and make adjustments as needed. Trying to work the orange in first, or again you could have a touch of burnt sienna with the orange if you want to darken it down just a wee bit. Little petals are kind of fun once you get going with them, and they're real simple. It's just working your light against dark is all it is for separation. Cad yellow light, of course, is a little lighter than cad yellow medium, so sometimes you'll want to use that color instead of the cad yellow medium, and just kind of use your own judgment as to what you need for separation. See, right in here I might decide to come in with just a little bit more burnt sienna there to separate those two petals. And sometimes you may even feel like you need to make a little adjustment to your background. Right there I've got a real fuzzy looking little spot, and I'm going to take some of my dark blue and put up against the petal right into the background. Okay, we're going to finish working on these flowers, but watch as you begin to come on around, and these little petals that are on the other side, kind of away from you, they're farther away, they're going to be darker in value. You'll probably want a little bit of burnt sienna, maybe a touch of blue and sienna on those when we paint them. We can paint them and then shade them down, but that does make them look like it has depth. These are bright, they're up the top, they're in the sunlight. As we come on around, they get more in shadow, and so they're going to be darker. So we'll watch that as we come on around. Okay, now then, we're going to continue on and get a few more little bright ones right here. Brighter petals with your orange and your burnt sienna for the shading. And that's coming down to where they hit the little points of the calyx. And then come on up with some of that shadow, and then I'll leave the light orange or the bright yellow for the top of the petals and the side right in here where it's brighter. Just pick from either yellow and then sometimes adding some white to it. And these petals don't really have to be just perfect, because, you know, flowers are not that perfect anyway, and they have a little softer look sometimes. They look better, they look more natural. I'm going to be getting into some of these where we want to show a little more darkness to some, so I'll get the yellow in there, and then I'll come over it with just a little bit of a brownish, rusty color, little burnt sienna, maybe burnt sienna. Well, probably just burnt sienna is enough. I was going to say you could have just a speck of red in it, just to dull it. I know it's hard to pick up a little bit of red, very bright color. But there's a little bit of dark now in between some of these. It could be quite dark. Burnt sienna, a little blue maybe with it. add some separation. And some of this I can even see little hints of green as they go away from you. That one right there is going to be just a little darker. I'll put some yellow on this one, but I'm going to stroke over it with just a little bit of your green and sienna, just something to dull it. Beginning to push it back. These little petals down here, again, they're darker. I've got a little bit of the green and sienna worked into them too with just a small amount of the yellow. But adjustments can be made to these very easily. You can get them painted and then come back and darken the ones that you feel like need to be darker. Little yellow ochre is good for the darker petals too. Instead of putting the bright yellow, put a little yellow ochre in there. You can paint the same picture over and over many, many times, and you'll never have two alike, that's nice. It's part of the fun, you know. But you make it too much work if you have to think that everything has to be exactly like the teachers, or that every time I paint it, I have to make it just exactly like the original painting that I did. That would be very difficult and very time consuming, and it turns what should be fun into work. Lots of work. So I like to see a little variation. I like for the students to do things that are a little creative, so that they see things maybe different than I do. And often theirs looks better than mine. So hey, that's great. Back up here into the sunshine again, we'll put some more of the brighter yellow flowers, petals in there, and a little bit more orange on the side of some. These little petals down here just have a little bit of yellow just on their tips more than on the whole thing, maybe. And then again, maybe just a little bit of green or brown tones on some of these that are faded back and pushed away from you on the other side of the stem end. That should do it for the first flower, I think, as far as all the little petals go. Okay, I'm going to move over to the left flower now, and some of these petals that are a little richer, bolder in color have just a little touch of cad red light in the orange and the yellow, just a little bit of red. But still, they're mostly the yellow, especially for the light highlights. Still got a lot of little light areas on these petals, even though I'm putting a little bit of red in some of them down here at the bottom again, and with a touch of orange and reds. But then get the more yellow colors and the bright colors toward the end. Some of these little twisty ones kind of look neat up there in the air. They're kind of skinny, but they're just twisted around. You can always put your orange and reds or whatever darker values you're going to use on several petals at once if you don't want to just do one at a time. I usually don't do a whole bunch without finishing them off, but you can do several, 2 or 3, and then put all your light colors on. Get your darks and then your lights. Might go just a little quicker and easier than trying to do each petal as a complete separate finished thing. And there's a little burnt sienna in some of these where they're darker as well. Sunflowers are so cheerful. That's why I like sunflowers so much. They just always seem so bright and cheery. About to lose some of my edges here on my center part, so I'm having to come back and put some more of that in on the little highlights there. And it's got lost. There we go. of these little areas in between the petals, if they get painted out, you can take a small brush and work back into it again, putting some of your base coat dark value back in there, what is needed that got lost. Have to watch as you come over here, because I'm about to paint something here that into a petal that should be part of your calyx. And that's this thing that holds the greenery that's holding the flower to the stem is your calyx, and that's going to be green. But these two little petals here are still part of your sunflower petals, and they're flipped over, so they're going to be. This one's a little bit darker back here to the back. I'll put just a little bit of my rusty red there. Clean my brush and put a little bit of the yellow white out here where it's going to catch the sunlight. Blend it back into the reddish orange there at the back of the petal. Flips over, and this one's quite yellow too. It doesn't have much at the back that's dark. So it's pretty yellow petal all in all. It's got just a little bit of orangey colors toward the bottom, but it's bright. Makes it flip over. We'll leave this green part here, the calyx. We'll do it and the other one at the top together. So we'll leave that for the next step. And then I like to look at the finished one after I've completed what I think is most part of it, and see if you see anything that you think needs to be brightened up or add a little bit more shading or your reds or oranges to make it pop out just a little bit brighter, or separate anything that looks like it needs separation. When I'm done with the painting, which of course we're not finished with this one yet, but I always like to set them up where I can see it as I walk by it or through the room, and turn and look at the painting and see if I see anything that jumps out at me that needs to be a little different. I'll still brighten that little edge up with some more yellow right here on top of the little seed area. A little more yellow there. But anyway, you can see things better sometimes as to whether it looks good or not when you just look at it real quickly and don't try to analyze it so much. Some things pop out that you hadn't noticed. But I think that's going to be pretty good for this flower here, and then in a few minutes we'll move on to the next one. Okay, let's move on to our final flower. And of course it's going to be done just like the others, so it'll all match and look like it's the same flowers. So I'm going to put some of the burnt sienna orange color down toward the bottom again and use that for your shading. And then the rest of it is going to be your various yellows and Shade it down with oranges and a little bit of burnt sienna sometimes. There's two little petals here that didn't get separated very well. So I'm going to go ahead and put some dark in there, just pull my dark color down in between them to make it look like two petals instead of one. Pull this petal up just a little bit higher. There we go. Now then, that looks like separate petals. We've got some little hanging over ones again, but still your dark will be at the bottom of this one at the back. And I'll do these two at the same time here. And they will be brighter on the ends with more yellow. Either one of the yellows and perhaps just a little touch of white also, that makes it brighter. Sometimes just 2 or 3 strokes and they'll finish out your petals. They don't have to be a whole lot of strokes. These little petals that hang over, again, they'll be a little bit darker to the back side, and then bright yellow where they hang over. There's quite a few little dark areas in between some of these petals that's down here below. So I'm I'll try to get some of those little dark places in right now so I won't lose them. Little separation places, see the background through it. That pretty well finishes up the petals on these. I think we might go back and do a little touching up like maybe later after they set up a little bit, you can go back and add more light to them, as well as putting more shading in, and a lot of that can be done even after they're dry. Sometimes people don't realize they can go back and work on their painting after it's dry, but that's a good time to go back and adjust colors and values and little touch-ups and so forth that you might want to do, but it works just fine after everything is dry. You don't have that problem of lifting up the paint that's underneath sometimes when you don't want to lift it, and it lifts anyway. So we'll let these set up at this point, and we'll look at them a while and see if they need any adjustment or not. Okay, after your flowers are painted, let's paint the calyx. That's the little thing, the greenery that holds onto the stem, brings the stem up in the calyx, and then the flowers, the petals are attached to that. Now for this one up here, well, let's start with this one down here. Let's start with this one. Be a little easier to see it. You need a couple of shades of green, and you need a very blue-green. That's going to be your dark value. So ultramarine blue plus just a small amount of yellow. And I'm going to add even just a speck of red to that, just so you have a very dark value of green. And then the other green is going to be a lighter, little bit more of a yellow green. Let's put the dark green that I have mixed here. Well, it looks almost a black color. And I'm going to put it a little bit in there to separate between the little sections of your calyx that holds your flower petals. A little bit of dark in there. At the bottom where it connects against the flower, and then between the different little sections here. These are kind of curly around this particular one. Actually, I think some of this that I painted as a flower petal here might just as well be a part of your greenery. I think that one particularly needs to be green. And then I'm going to pick up the lighter color, which is your light yellow green. If you get your dark in there. And just take this nice light yellow green. That just means more yellow in your blue and some white. Just a little bit of white. Just a little bit of medium with it. And you just set it down and just pull off these little green, kind of pointed little leaf things. Kind of pull out to a little point at the end with a little twist to some of them. These little point where you kind of twist your brush around. And the stem will also be light enough that you can see it. It's more yellow-green, so it pulls away from the other greens that maybe are behind. And if you need more contrast, go back to your dark value, your dark blue. You could run a little bit of that right underneath the stem or wherever it needs to be to separate the little sections. Everything is dark against light, remember. That makes your separation. So just working with a dark, very dark kind of blue-green and a little bit of the light yellow greens. And that's it. Right across the top of the stem is a little lighter. Some of these little pointy ends could be just a touch lighter. Okay, working on this top one, here's a little something different. This stem comes up into the calyx a bit. Take your dark and run on each side of the stem. This is your very dark green, a lot of blue, not very much yellow, maybe even a speck of red in it. And then get some little separation dark areas in these little sections, how they come out to hold the petals. So you we separate between them a bit and in there. And then I kind of wipe my brush off and go to the lighter green, the more yellow green. Find the color that's going to show up. And some of this lighter green, then it's right on the end of those little points. Come on down into the middle of the calyx. Trying to get a little bit of that dark there to separate. Hope we don't lose it all. If we do, we'll put some of it back in. And then it comes around on each side of where we pull the stem up into the flower a bit further. And then this is green here. Kind of pull it down into the petals. But you want to keep this dark value right here next to where that stem comes up into the bottom of the flower there. And that stem will be lighter green, so it shows up as a lighter value against the dark that's next to it. But your trick is going to be to keep this dark value right here. See right there, so that this looks like it's coming up into the thing. And the stem could be just a little bit darker green on the left side. That would be on the shadowed side. If you can get just a little bit more blue there. That will look like the back of that flower. We're looking at that when it's turned facing the other direction. So we're seeing the back side of it. Need just a little bit more. Okay. That should do for that. Okay, let's move down now and paint our tabletop. The table's sitting at a little bit of an angle, and the dark blue, the darkest blue on the table, is your ultramarine blue and a little bit of white and a bit of cad red light to gray it. So you get kind of a nice lavender gray color. It's a little bit dark as it comes back from the pot here. We've got the flower pot, and I'm working with my detail flat brush right now so I can get right up against the flower pot. It needs to be a little bit lighter than the flower pot, but it's still a kind of that gray color. Blue, white, touch of red. Try to get it right against the pot, and if I need to, I can come back and darken the pot just a little bit more if that seems necessary. And I'm moving back and forth. This brush is my detail flat, but if you've got one that's a little bit scruffy, you don't want to use a brand new brush for something like this. Wears it out too quickly, but if you got kind of an old one, it'll work. Once I get away from the pot, though, I could actually go to my bristle brush, but I wanted to make sure we got it pretty close to it. Use a little touch of medium, but plenty of paint. Don't be stingy with your paint. This is a fairly large area here to cover. And there's a little bit of lighter value of the same color. It's just slightly lighter, a little more white in it on the other side. And we've got all these little fallen petals down here. I'm going to try to go around them so I don't paint them out. We can paint them out, but it's hard to get them to look yellow while it's all wet, so we'll try to go around them to some extent anyway. So again, this is still your same mixture of your blue and white and a little touch of your red, Cad Red Light, but it's a little lighter. At this point, I probably will switch to my bristle brush. Kind of soften that back line a bit so it's not a hard line, and let it pick up, you know, kind of make your follow through to the other side so it's even, more or less, but it does angle back. There's going to be some light color right here in the front, so don't think that whole thing blue. Under the jug, and about that far down, and then I'm going to paint the little drop area of the side of the cloth right in here. Same colors, just a little darker. Go back to your original mix is okay. Your blue, white, touch of red. And that's where the edge of the cloth is, and then you're gonna see a little bit of the drop right there. I'm just gonna fill it in for right now. That's your dark, and then at this point I'll clean my brush. Your shadow will be the darkest right against the vase, and it gets a little lighter as you pull out. So if possible, a little bit more blue, maybe a touch of the red, and lay it right against the vase, and then let it pull on out. Cast shadows are always a little darker the closer they are to the object that is throwing the shadow. In this case it would be the vase. So if you can get it a little darker there, sometimes you have to wait and darken it after it tacks up a little bit, but at any rate that's the way it should go. And when you've got all your dark in, you'll want to clean your brush. And then I picked up white that has just a tiny little bit of pink in it. So let's go with Cad Red Light, just a little tiny bit of pink. And maybe there might be even a touch of yellow in it, just to kind of reflect some of the colors that's up here above. Yellow white maybe would be better than the pink. Now white, touch of yellow, little touch of red, just a tiny bit. I'm coming over to the edge of the table. This is a table, I guess, here. And then take your light color and drop it straight down over the edge and soften it a little bit. Make it look like you've got a cloth that comes to the edge and drops over. And you kind of soften out that definite line there. Your light comes to the edge of the table and drops straight down. Makes it look like it's hanging in little folds. Use the flat of the brush, and you have to go over it a few times, just soften it. And some of the dark pulls out onto the tabletop too, like a little wrinkle or something in the table, and then it just falls over the edge. And that's it. Now back here, I moved back here again, trying to get this a little bit more of an angle that's going to be the same angle here, kind of make it go through and then over here. So we're looking at the table at a little bit of an angle. But go here, here, and then imaginary through the pot, and then pick up on the other side and come down. Okay, we're going to do the little fallen petals down here that are yellow, and if you've lost yours, you really don't need a pattern for them anyway. I can see mine through there just a little bit. Just take a little bit of your bright yellow, this is cad yellow medium, and do a stroke that looks something like a fallen petal. And then I'm going to take just a little bit of orange and put with it just to give it a little bit more color. And I'm going to do about 3 of those, and then we'll put a shadow underneath them. So again, just some of your yellows, maybe a touch of white with it to highlight it a bit. These can look kind of loose and messy. Just use the flat of the brush, just squish out the paint, pull it over to the side a bit. Yellow petals with a little touch of orange toward the bottom of them perhaps. That one needs a little separation, so I'll put a little bit more orange at the bottom of it. Then this one can be more yellow on its top. And then to make them look like they're sitting on the table, clean your brush out and pick up just a little bit of your purpley blue, that blue that's got a little bit of red light in it, dark value. And right underneath the petals, put a little shadow. Pull it off to the side a little bit, or just soften it just a little. And then they will appear to be laying on the table. A little bit of a flip back there to that one, something to mess it up a little bit. And under these little fallen petals, well, we'll go ahead and put those in first, and then we'll put some little petals that's fallen from the purple flowers that we're going to do next. Okay, now then we're going to put in the little purple flowers. The lavender, the purple lavender color is the complement of the yellow, so that's why I wanted to put them in with that color. That looks good together. Color complements always set each other off nicely, so the flowers needed to be purple. And we'll mix the purple with, let's use our alizarin crimson and blue. When you mix a red and blue, you get a purple, and add a little white, and you'll get, if it leans more to the red, you get kind of a reddish purple, and that's what I really wanted for most of it. If you have more blue in it, it's kind of a blue purple. So I like the one that's got a little bit more of the red, I think. And then enough white in there just for it to look nice so it shows up. Alizarin crimson, indithrone blue, and white. And I'm going to use my little filbert brush for this. This is an excellent brush for small areas. Okay, we've got a little flower that's kind of hanging down here. Let me do this first. Let's put a little stem there with my liner. If you can find a little of your green colors on your palette there that still can pick up. I've got kind of hanging from this general area right in here that you can pull a little stem around, and we'll put a little greenery here, just a little greenery. And then I've got another stem that's coming kind of down in here somewhere. And there'll be another little flower from there. So maybe somewhere in here's the one, and the little stems kind of tell us where it is. And then I'm going to take my little filbert, and this is just like a comma stroke. Push down and pull in. It's kind of a push and pull kind of thing. Keep your paint a little bit moist. Keep it kind of wet with your medium. And I don't know what these little flowers are. They're just little purple flowers. So there's one. And here's another one over here. Maybe it needs to be a little darker to show up. I'll add a little bit more color to it. These are just little random petals. There, now we can see it. Okay, and then finished up with my liner, or you can clean your little filbert and do the little greenery with that if you would prefer. But there's some little wiggly, squiggly little bits of greenery. Something that'll show up. Has to be just light enough you can see it. Just let your hand be kind of nervous. You don't want them just as a straight line, so kind of wiggle it a little bit. Some of these could actually be a little darker. Some of it comes over that leaf back there. I think I'm going to put just a piece of another little flower in there. So I put in 3 of those little flowers. Some of this old greenery comes on down toward the table. It's hard to know how much to put on and when to quit, but you quit just before you get too much. If you know when that is. That's the hard part. Okay, and then we'll move on up to the top here, and we'll put in, I've got the 3 little flowers up there toward the top is next. And again, I'm going to start with my liner up here, and these come out from behind this flower in through here. Some of these are just little falling over kind of little leafy squiggly things. Some kind of filler in the bouquet, I suppose. Paint needs to be very, very thin so it'll mark off easily. Got, again, 3 more little flowers in the purple that you want to just kind of stagger. One of them's way up high. Just little comma strokes. Curve it a little bit. I like little daisy type flowers. And then maybe just a few more little leaves. Okay. table here I've got a few little purple flower petals. A little shadow under them just a little bit. I think that's it. Okay, I think this painting is done, so I'm going to go ahead and sign it. Always sign your paintings. You never know who will want them someday. Sometimes students say, oh, I don't ever sign anything. I said, oh, sign it. Your great-grandchildren may want that. Who knows? Anyway, I hope you had fun with these flowers today. The sunflowers are fun to do and bright and cheerful, so I hope you have a good day and happy painting. Bye-bye.